Hey guys, welcome you all to the Insights into Books podcast, where we discuss insights of significant books which changes our lives. But before we start the discussion on today's book, kindly subscribe to the channel for regular updates. With the hope that you have subscribed, let's start today's discussion. Today we're embarking on a deep dive, really getting into a philosophy of mental mastery that honestly challenges pretty much everything we think we know about our own limits. We're exploring the transformative journey of men who didn't just, overcome immense adversity, but actively used it. Used it to forge an unbreakable will and completely reshape his entire life. And this isn't just some inspiring story you hear and forget. It's more like a blueprint, really, for anyone ready to unlock their true, often hidden potential.
That's precisely right. And what we'll be dissecting today, it's definitely more than just a personal narrative, fascinating as it is. It's an actionable framework, something you can use for cultivating extraordinary resilience and, importantly, achieving goals that most people would just readily dismiss, call them impossible. It's fundamentally about understanding the profound and I think often overlooked connection between our mindset and our actual human potential. The core message was undeniably powerful. Adversity isn't just something to survive, right? It's raw material. It's fuel, if you will, that can ignite real transformation. And those self-limiting beliefs, those invisible shackles we tend to place on ourselves, they can be shattered completely. An unbreakable mindset, it's far from being some innate gift you're born with. It's a disciplined creation, something forged through intentional struggle. So yeah, we're talking about a guide to confronting your deepest realities, embracing discomfort, and consistently pushing past what you perceive to be your absolute limits.
Okay, let's really unpack this then, because before we can even delve into the powerful strategies and principles he lays out, we absolutely need to understand the crucible, the environment from which this whole philosophy emerged. The early life of the man whose insights we're exploring, David Goggins, it was marked by truly staggering challenges. I mean, a history so grim that for many people it would have just been an insurmountable barrier to any kind of success, let alone the kind he achieved. His story is just such a powerful testament to the idea that our past doesn't have to define our future, but it certainly can shape the tools we end up using to build that future. Born in 1975, Goggins' childhood was, well, anything but idyllic. That's putting it mildly. From the really tender ages of 6 to 8, he endured an incredibly difficult situation. It sounds almost like indentured servitude, really. He was working at his tyrannical father's roller disco rink. Just picture this. A young kid, forced to work tirelessly, organizing skating shoes, surrounded by loud music, often until midnight. Exhaustion was just his constant companion. So much so that he would frequently fall asleep right there in school, unable to focus. His young body and mind were just completely overwhelmed.
And the physical exhaustion, that was just one layer. It was compounded by severe emotional and physical trauma. He regularly witnessed his father's brutal assaults on his mother, often for the smallest things, like minor infractions, or what his father saw as defiance. There's a particularly harrowing account he shares of his mother being beaten senseless, simply for taking him, young David, to the hospital for a severe ear infection. Why? Because his father, apparently consumed by miserliness, just hated spending any money on his family's health or well-being.
It's sickening to even think about. And when young David tried to step in, to protect his mother, he was met with the belt himself. He talks about having to hide the bruises from his teachers at school. And this wasn't just an isolated incident, was it? His early life was a constant state of fear, pain, and deprivation.
Exactly, a constant state. And what's truly fascinating, and I think ultimately pivotal to his whole story, is how these early, almost unimaginable traumas became the very raw material for his later radical transformation. At age 8, a crucial turning point finally arrived. David and his mother managed to escape his father's tyranny. They relocated to Brazil, Indiana. Yet this newfound freedom, it was far from easy. They essentially traded one form of suffering for another, didn't they? Now facing abject poverty. They were subsisting on meager welfare checks, his mother's part-time job, just scraping by in public housing that apparently cost a mere $7 a month.
$7, wow. And in this new town, he encountered another layer of adversity. He was, I believe, the only black kid there at the time and quickly became a target of racism.
Right. Which just cemented this feeling he had of being an other, deepening an already profound sense of isolation and insecurity. And the immense, sustained, toxic stress of those early years. It manifested in some deeply unsettling physical and mental ways. He developed a nervous stutter, experienced alarming hair loss, even patches of his skin began to lose pigment, vitiligo, I think.
And his memory, too, right? That was affected.
Vastly affected,
Yeah.
which, as you can imagine, is a cornerstone of learning. This led to immense struggles with literacy as a teenager. He talks openly about resorting to cheating in school, simply because he felt unable to genuinely absorb and remember what he was being taught.
And the trauma didn't stop there, did it? There were further tragedies.
No, it continued. His stepfather was murdered, and he had the traumatic experience of witnessing a child run over by a school bus. Just an unbelievable accumulation of hardship. And this relentless onslaught, it left him feeling numb, afraid, deeply depressed. By his early 20s, he found himself weighing 300 pounds. He described feeling like an utter loser, and crucially, he felt armed with every imaginable excuse to justify his circumstances. Anyone would understand, right?
Absolutely, given that background.
He described himself as numb and afraid. Yet in a surprising, almost paradoxical twist, he reflects later that this very darkness became a friend indeed, a hidden, potent fuel for a profound metamorphosis. And this really compels us to consider, doesn't it? How many of us truly confront our own bad hand, those painful experiences, the unfair circumstances, the limiting factors in our past, and not just confront them, but genuinely learn to use those experiences as a powerful transformative force?
That's a tough question. Most people, understandably, want to just move on, forget the bad stuff.
Right. We desire comfort. We try to sweep difficult pasts under the rug. But Goggins argues, quite compellingly, I think, that these unresolved experiences, they invariably reemerge. They influence our present decisions. They limit our future, whether we realize it or not. His journey suggests the real power lies not in forgetting, but in confronting, processing, and ultimately converting that past pain into present power.
That's a profound thought, almost uncomfortable, like you said. And it leads us directly to that specific moment, the catalyst that kicked off his monumental turning point. The initial spark, interestingly enough, came from a pretty unexpected source, just watching a TV documentary about Navy SEALs training. He found himself utterly transfixed by their almost superhuman mental toughness, their unwavering determination to fight through unimaginable suffering, and their, peak physical conditioning.
Uh-huh. These individuals seemed to operate on a completely different plane, didn't they? Pushing past what most people would consider absolute human limits. And watching them ignited something deep, primal, and powerful within him. It was a catalyst. But importantly, not for some quick fix, but for a complete root and branch reimagining of his life.
Yeah, because at that point, he was in the Air Force, but he wasn't exactly thriving, was he?
Not at all. He admitted he'd lost all enthusiasm, described himself as a zombie. He was working a pretty mundane pest control job, spraying for cockroaches, feeling completely directionless. But watching those SEALs, he had this powerful, almost visceral realization. His own words were, "I was jealous of them."
Jealousy. That's interesting. Not admiration, but jealousy.
Exactly. And it wasn't a petty envy,
Yeah.
It was a profound yearning for what they embodied. That mental fortitude, that physical prowess, that intense sense of purpose and achievement he felt he lacked. And this raw desire for a different life sparked an absolutely audacious, almost ludicrous decision. He would become a Navy SEAL.
Which, considering his starting point, sounds insane.
Completely. Consider it. 300 pounds, carrying the immense weight of years of trauma. And critically, he couldn't swim. He'd only seen a swimming pool for the first time at age 12, apparently, simply because his family's poverty meant things like swimming lessons were just completely out of reach.
Yeah.
Yet this incredible, almost unbridgeable gap between his current reality and his aspiration, that became the precise canvas for his radical self-transformation.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because it highlights that crucial difference between just fleeting inspiration and true, unwavering commitment. This wasn't just a quick, feel-good burst of motivation that fades after a week. After a week of being kicked out of his mother's house again, actually forced to confront his own reflection in the mirror, he made a pivotal, life-altering decision. He literally looked himself in the eye and declared, "No more easy path, no more cheating."
He famously coined this his accountability mirror moment.
A direct, brutally honest confrontation with his true, unvarnished self. No more excuses. Exactly. And from that moment forward, he embarked on an absolutely grueling regimen. The goal: to lose an astonishing 106 pounds in just 2 months. This involved an incredibly intense daily routine. 2 bike exercises, 4-mile runs, every single day.
And the results were almost unbelievable. He lost 25 pounds in the first 2 weeks alone. That's just a testament to the sheer force of his newfound will.
But it wasn't easy from the get-go. He started with the smallest, most uncomfortable steps imaginable. His very first run, he lasted only 400 yards before his body just gave out. collapsed.
But he got back up. He persevered. And he describes this profound shift in perspective that happened. He began to actually crave the good feelings that discomfort gave him.
Crave discomfort. That's a key Goggins idea, isn't it?
Absolutely central. It transformed him, in his words, from someone broken and defeated into an individual who was rough and resilient.
And this relentless self-imposed effort ultimately led him not only back into the Air Force, where he had to overcome significant hurdles like failing the ASVAB test, the military entrance exam, multiple times due to those learning struggles, but then, even more remarkably, to successfully complete the notoriously brutal Navy SEAL training.
And not just complete it once. He endured multiple hell weeks, the toughest part of SEAL training. Despite injuries as severe as a fractured kneecap along the way, he just wouldn't quit.
It's incredible. He took that raw feeling of jealousy, that desire for something he completely lacked, and used it to totally overhaul his life. He became something he previously thought was absolutely impossible for him.
It's such a powerful testament, isn't it, to how one decisive moment, backed by relentless, almost obsessive discipline, can utterly change everything. It really shows us that the deepest change often begins right there when we're at our lowest point and finally willing to be brutally honest with ourselves.
So what does this all mean for us listening to this? Beyond just the awe-inspiring story, what can we take away? Goggins didn't just do hard things. He meticulously developed a philosophy around how to approach them. And the very first step, he argues, the absolute foundation, is truly mastering your mind. Because that's where every battle is either won or lost.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really suggests that genuine self-transformation isn't about chasing fleeting inspiration.
Right.
Or waiting for temporary bursts of energy. It's about a deep, systematic, internal recalibration, a fundamental shift in how we process challenge, how we react to discomfort. It's much more about building a mental fortress, what he calls an armored mind, rather than just hoping for a sudden surge of motivation to somehow carry us through the hard times.
An armored mind. I like that.
It's a great image. And the central tenet of his entire philosophy is exactly that. An unbreakable mindset is the absolute non-negotiable key to achieving extraordinary goals. He firmly believes that training the mind is paramount. And often the most effective way to do this is through intense physical challenges. Why? Because these challenges force us, they compel us, to manage our thought processes under serious duress. And that builds deep-seated resilience that absolutely transcends the purely physical realm.
So the physical is a tool for the mental.
Precisely. Goggins asserts that life is one big mind game, and, crucially, the only person you are truly playing against is yourself. The goal isn't just to cope with difficulty, it's to develop this armored mind, a mindset so callous, so hard, so accustomed to adversity, that it effectively becomes bulletproof. Bulletproof against doubt, fear, and negativity.
And how do you build that? Not by avoiding the tough stuff, presumably.
Exactly the opposite. It isn't achieved by avoiding your past or trying to suppress your fears. It's built by directly confronting the very source of all those fears and insecurities and actively making peace with your past traumas and your perceived weaknesses, turning them into strength. And he draws a really vital distinction here between motivation and drive. This is key.
Okay, motivation versus drive, what's the difference for him?
Motivation, he argues, with his typical bluntness, is essentially crap.
Huh.
It's a temporary fix, he says, like a little bit of kindling that burns bright for a moment but quickly dissipates the second discomfort sets in, or you face a bad day, or just the initial excitement wears off. It's external, it's conditional.
Right, we've all felt that motivation fade.
Exactly. Drive, on the other hand, is something much deeper. It's an obsession, an unwavering internal discipline. It's an unshakable fire that propels you forward, regardless of external conditions, internal mood, or any perceived obstacles. Drive is what makes you put in the work when you absolutely do not feel like it, because it's tied to a deeper purpose and an intrinsic commitment to self-mastery, not just a fleeting feeling.
That's a really powerful and vital distinction. It separates those, fleeting sparks of energy we sometimes get from that enduring, almost obsessive discipline that fuels continuous grinding effort. Makes you think about how many times we've relied on motivation alone and then wondered why we couldn't sustain our efforts, why we quit. And intimately tied into this concept of forging an armored mind is something he calls the 40% rule, which I have to say has absolutely revolutionized how many people view their own capabilities.
Oh, the 40% rule. It's a cornerstone concept in his philosophy, absolutely. And it's profoundly insightful, almost shocking, really, in its implications for all of us. It posits that when our minds tell us we are utterly exhausted, when we truly believe we're completely done, that we have absolutely nothing left in the tank, We have, in fact, only utilized approximately 40% of our true capabilities.
Only 40%. That's staggering.
It is. The idea is that our brain's primary evolutionary function is to seek comfort, conserve energy, and avoid pain at all costs. It acts as a kind of internal governor, like on an engine,
Yeah.
self-imposed limiter that prevents us from pushing too hard, from venturing beyond what it perceives as safe, and thus ultimately from reaching our peak potential.
So our own brains are holding us back from what we could actually achieve.
That's the argument. And it raises a huge question for all of us, doesn't it? If our minds are constantly trying to hold us back, what extraordinary feats are we truly capable of if we can just learn to bypass or at least consciously override that internal governor?
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you push past that 40% barrier?
The practical challenge, according to Goggins, is to systematically push past this perceived limit, but, and this is important, to do so incrementally. He suggests a gradual ramp-up, just going 5–10% further than your normal stopping point, not trying to double your output overnight.
So small pushes, like if you normally do 100 push-ups.
Exactly. Don't just stop there. Aim for 105, maybe 110. If your weekly running goal is 30 miles, challenge yourself to run 33 miles the following week. Small, consistent increments. And this measured gradual ramp-up is crucial for a couple of reasons. One, it helps prevent injury, which is obviously vital when you're pushing physical limits. But two, and perhaps more importantly, it allows both your body and, critically, your mind to slowly adapt to a new, higher workload. This process effectively resets your baseline. It shifts what you once considered your absolute maximum into your new minimum, your new normal.
Wow, okay, so you're constantly raising the bar on yourself, bit by bit.
Precisely. And the mental strength, the profound confidence, the undeniable self-belief that you gain from consistently pushing physically, that inevitably transfers. It spills over into other non-physical areas of your life, whether it's tackling a complex project at work, navigating a difficult conversation, or committing to learn a challenging new skill. It reveals that underperformance in one area often indicates untapped potential or maybe ingrained underperformance in others, simply because you've allowed that internal governor to dictate your capabilities across the board.
This is truly mind-blowing stuff. It makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about your own personal capacity. Imagine the incredible potential we leave on the table every day, in our work, in our relationships, in personal development, even just in daily tasks. If we're constantly quitting at just 40% of our true capacity, it forces you to reconsider every single "I can't" or "I'm just too tired" thought you've ever had. And central to consistently pushing past that 40% threshold is another core Goggins principle, callousing the mind. It sounds intense, and I get the feeling it absolutely is.
Oh, it is intense. But callousing the mind, it isn't about being a masochist, right? Or seeking out unnecessary pain just for the sake of it. It's about deliberately, consciously choosing to face uncomfortable situations and actually embrace pain as a mechanism for building profound mental resilience. Goggins states it explicitly. Life experience, especially negative experiences, help callous the mind. Like calluses on your hands from hard work, but for your brain.
So how does that work in practice? What does it look like day to day?
The idea is to systematically step outside your comfort zone, making it a consistent daily practice, not just waiting for challenges to happen to you. And he suggests starting tiny, almost trivially small, like making your bed meticulously every morning when you'd rather just leave it messy, or washing the dishes immediately after a meal instead of letting them pile up in the sink.
So it's not about the task itself, but the discipline.
Exactly. It's about those micro decisions, choosing discipline over comfort, again and again. And once these small actions become comfortable, the challenge is to progressively increase the difficulty. Maybe you then choose to take a cold shower every morning, or engage in that challenging conversation you've been actively avoiding, or purposefully sit in silence with your own thoughts for 10 minutes instead of instinctively reaching for your phone.
Right, pushing the boundary of comfort outwards.
Precisely. The more often you consciously choose to get uncomfortable, the stronger your mind becomes. This consistent practice fosters an undeniable can-do attitude. And critically, it develops a more productive and resilient internal dialogue for when you face genuinely stressful situations later on. You've practiced being uncomfortable.
And his mantra for this is pretty direct, isn't it?
Very direct, almost aggressive. Chase pain like it's your damn job. This active, almost strategic pursuit of discomfort is seen as the only genuine way to consistently move beyond the 40% rule and effectively dismantle that internal governor we talked about. And Goggins' own life offers numerous stark examples of this philosophy in action, running 100-mile ultramarathons on broken legs, stress fractures, and during freezing open water swims during the brutal Navy SEAL Hell Week. purposefully choosing situations that tested his physical and mental limits to the absolute breaking point and then deliberately pushing even further. What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how he transforms pain. He takes it from something to be instinctively avoided at all costs into a chosen, intentional training ground for the mind. And that fundamentally alters your entire relationship with discomfort. It changes it from being a barrier you hit into an opportunity you seek out, and that's how you forge an unbreakable spirit.
Okay, so we have these powerful mindset principles. The armored mind, the 40% rule, callousing the mind. But beyond the mindset, Goggins also offers concrete, actionable tools, doesn't he? Things you can actually implement in your daily life. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are specific daily practices designed to keep you accountable, ruthlessly honest with yourself, and continuously growing. And the first one he developed, arguably right at the very beginning of his own transformation, is something he calls the accountability mirror.
Yeah, the accountability mirror. And this tool, it really forces us to confront an important, maybe uncomfortable question about self-deception. Because, let's be honest, we all tell ourselves stories, right? Often flattering ones, to avoid uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
Guilty as charged.
We all are. The accountability mirror is not about self-love in the conventional feel-good, affirm yourself sense. It's about radical self-honesty, a raw, unvarnished confrontation with your weaknesses, your failures, your insecurities, completely stripped of ego or any sugarcoating.
So how does it work? What do you actually do?
The method is simple, yet profoundly challenging psychologically. You write down all your insecurities, your most ambitious dreams, and your specific actionable goals on Post-it notes. And then you affix them directly to a mirror in your home. Bathroom mirror, bedroom mirror, wherever you'll see it constantly.
So it's staring you in the face every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It creates a constant, unavoidable visual reminder. It forces you every single day to come eyeball to eyeball with yourself and get raw and real, as he puts it. And this includes writing down those harsh, uncomfortable truths. Things like, you're fat, you're not smart enough yet, or you're lazy about X.
That sounds brutal. Is the point to shame yourself?
Not shame, no. The purpose isn't self-flagellation. It's to face your reality head-on, to acknowledge precisely where you are right now, so you can determine exactly where you need to go and what needs to change. The mirror serves as an active daily tool to hold yourself accountable for incremental progress. It forces you to break down those large, daunting goals for the Post-its into smaller, measurable steps that you can track day by day.
I can see that. It turns vague intentions into concrete targets.
Right. Goggins credits this mirror for keeping him on point, especially early on, for instilling the profound self-discipline he needed to achieve those monumental goals, like finally passing those crucial military exams despite his severe struggles with literacy. It basically transforms those internal excuses we all make into external, undeniable reminders. It makes your growth a constant, visible, unavoidable mission.
I can absolutely see how that kind of unvarnished truth staring you down every single day could be an incredibly potent motivator. It just strips away all the comforting lies we tell ourselves, doesn't it? Okay, another fascinating and deeply practical tool he shares is what he terms the cookie jar technique. It's an interesting analogy for what seems like a powerful mental resource.
Yes, the cookie jar technique. It's a truly powerful mental tool that Goggins developed. And it's all about tapping into your own personal history as a source of strength when you need it most. The idea is you create this metaphorical cookie jar in your mind, and you consciously fill it, you stock it, with every past accomplishment, every moment of triumph, every significant obstacle you've ever overcome.
So you're collecting memories of your successes.
Exactly. But, and this is important, these cookies aren't just the big life-altering victories, like graduating SEAL training or losing 100 pounds or overcoming deep depression, though those are definitely in there. They can, and absolutely should, also be smaller, more everyday wins, things you might normally dismiss.
Like what?
Think about the very first time you managed to run a mile without stopping, or when you finally understood a really difficult concept at work or school after struggling for hours, or the day you successfully quit a bad habit, like smoking, even just for a day initially. Anything where you pushed through difficulty and succeeded. Those are your cookies.
Okay, so you build up this mental inventory of past resilience. What do you do with it?
The idea is that when you're faced with new, daunting challenges in the present, when self-doubt starts creeping in as it inevitably does, or when you feel like quitting, you can metaphorically reach into this jar. You deliberately recall these past triumphs. You relive the emotional energy, the self-belief, the sheer grit you employed during those prior successes. And doing that helps to reignite your motivation and determination in the current struggle.
So it's about reminding yourself you've done hard things before.
Precisely. This technique is designed to help you control and manage doubt. It shifts your internal narrative from a defeated, I can't possibly do this, to a powerful, evidence-based, I've done hard things before, I've overcome obstacles just like this, I can absolutely do it again. And he stresses it's essential not just to intellectually recall these events, but to truly feel the emotions again, the initial pain, the struggle, the eventual relief or victory of those past successes. That's where the power lies.
Can you give an example of him using it?
Yeah, he vividly describes using this technique during a brutal 101-mile ultramarathon. He was deep in suffering, hours into the race, feeling utterly broken physically and mentally. And he started reaching into his cookie jar, tapping into specific visceral memories of past pain and past victory from SEAL training, from other races, from overcoming his childhood, allowing those cookies, those memories of resilience, to literally fuel him through to the finish line. It's all about remembering your own strength, accessing your own history of toughness precisely when you need it most.
I absolutely love that analogy. It's like having a mental vault, a personal archive of all your hard-won victories and moments of resilience, ready to be deployed exactly when you need that boost. It brilliantly reframes your own history, not as a burden or something to forget, but as an ever-present source of undeniable strength. That's really powerful. Okay, moving on, he also advocates for a very specific and maybe somewhat counterintuitive approach to visualization.
Yes, his approach to visualization is fascinating, mainly because it's so proactive, almost confrontational, compared to how many people think about it. It's definitely not about just wishful thinking or simply picturing a flawless victory unfolding effortlessly.
Right, not just manifesting success by thinking happy thoughts.
Not at all. Instead, it's about building a detailed mental roadmap that meticulously includes every potential pitfall, every likely moment of suffering, every unexpected obstacle you might encounter. By doing that, you make yourself profoundly resilient to the inevitable setbacks that life or any significant challenge inevitably throws your way.
So you visualize the hardship too.
Absolutely. Beyond simply imagining success, his technique emphatically emphasizes anticipating and mentally preparing for the potential challenges and the guaranteed suffering along the way. It's about more than just seeing yourself crossing the finish line in glory. It's about mentally driving the entire race course, if you will, visualizing not just the smooth stretches, but every single bump, every steep incline, every sharp turn, and mentally rehearsing exactly how you will navigate them.
So you're preparing your reactions in advance.
Precisely. It's about mentally rehearsing how you'll overcome those inevitable hardships before they even occur. This practice is designed to help you control your thought process during those critical moments of pain, doubt, and potential despair. You've already been there in your mind. And he stresses that to make this work, you must have ready, deeply ingrained answers to the fundamental questions that will arise when you're at your absolute limit.
Like what kind of questions?
So questions like, why are you really doing this? What is fundamentally driving you? Where does the darkness you're using as fuel actually come from? And what specific experiences have truly calloused your mind? These answers, if they're deeply felt and understood, become your internal anchors, your unwavering reasons for continuing when everything else is screaming at you to stop.
That makes sense. Your why needs to be solid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And crucially, Goggins states with his usual directness, you cannot visualize lies. Meaning, this kind of visualization must be meticulously backed by relentless, consistent, hard work, and genuine self-discipline to be effective at all. You can't just visualize being tough if you haven't actually done the work to become tough. It's a tool for thorough preparation, a detailed mental dress rehearsal for the battle ahead, not some magical substitute for the grueling effort required to actually earn that success.
That makes a tremendous amount of sense. It's about preparing for the harsh realities of the battle, mentally equipping yourself for the inevitable suffering by confronting it in advance, rather than just daydreaming about a clean, easy victory. And speaking of battles, he has another strategy that sounds, well, rather intense, almost aggressive, something he calls taking souls, or beating opponents.
Ah, yes, taking souls. It is intense, absolutely. This technique involves a very specific mental framing, consciously identifying perceived opponents or doubters in your life. Now, this could be a demanding boss who constantly questions your capabilities. It could be a critical teacher from your past who underestimated you, a dismissive coworker, even an unsupportive family member whose negativity you've maybe internalized over the years.
Okay, so you identify these people, then what? Confront them.
Not necessarily confront them directly, no. The core strategy is internal. It's about channeling that external pressure or that perceived negativity into an incredible, almost superhuman work ethic within yourself. You strive for such undeniable excellence. You work so incredibly hard that you not only meet but far surpass their standards and their expectations, real or perceived. You essentially use their doubt, their negativity, their low expectations as potent fuel for your own success.
So you prove them wrong through sheer performance.
Exactly. The ultimate goal, in Goggins' rather stark terms, is to make them watch you achieve what they thought you were utterly incapable of, to effectively take their soul through your sheer superiority, your undeniable excellence, and your unwavering performance.
Taking their soul. That's quite a phrase.
It is, but it's important to understand that this is primarily a mind game played within yourself. It's a psychological tactic he uses to ensure he is always performing at his absolute best, constantly pushing his limits, even if the opponent he's mentally chosen never consciously realizes they are part of this intense internal game he's playing against them. It's about transforming any external pressure into a powerful internal drive to excel beyond measure.
Can you give an example?
A classic one from his life involved his approach during SEAL Hell Week. He didn't just aim to pass, he aimed to dominate. He pushed himself to the absolute brink, overperforming in every single task, not just to meet the standard, but to surprise and ultimately mentally dominate his instructors, whom he perceived as adversaries constantly testing his limits, trying to break him. He wasn't just surviving the week, he was actively imposing his will on the situation and on them in his mind.
This is certainly a bit intense, maybe even controversial to some. But it's fascinating how it reframes every ounce of external pressure, every bit of doubt or negativity you encounter as a potential resource, turning perceived adversaries into unwitting motivators for your own internal drive. Okay, so these tools and mindset principles we've discussed, the accountability mirror, the cookie jar visualization, taking souls, they're incredibly powerful. But they all seem to share a common requirement: consistent, relentless application. Goggins talks about an all-encompassing commitment, doesn't he? A relentless pursuit of greatness that touches absolutely every aspect of his life. It's definitely not a part-time endeavor for him.
No, absolutely not. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, thinking about societal values, his philosophy really challenges many of our prevailing narratives, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially around things like innate talent or natural ability. Goggins' philosophy emphatically emphasizes that consistent, disciplined effort, regardless of your initial ability or perceived natural gifts, is the true, undeniable engine of extraordinary achievement.
So work ethic trumps talent.
That's his core belief. He believes talent and even raw passion are distinctly secondary to an unwavering, almost obsessive commitment to hard work. He states it unequivocally: "My work ethic is the single most important factor in all of my accomplishments. Everything else is secondary." He actively advocates for becoming addicted to hard work, as he puts it, seeing it as the only true way to master the mind, overcome those self-imposed limitations we talked about, and truly unlock your full potential.
Addicted to hard work, that's a strong phrase.
It is. And he's a harsh critic of what he perceives as modern society's addiction to quick fixes. You know, the desire for immediate results, the constant search for shortcuts, the general avoidance of sustained uncomfortable effort. He argues that genuine mastery, a truly calloused mind, and profound self-respect only come from consistent, long-term, hard effort and a deliberate, ongoing embrace of discomfort.
And he applies the 40% rule here too, right? To work itself.
He does. He provocatively suggests that a standard 40-hour work week is often merely 40% effort for many people, equating it to a comfortable mediocrity, just doing enough to get by. For Goggins, pushing beyond conventional expectations of work and effort isn't just about career advancement or productivity. It's fundamentally about shaping your character, forging an indomitable spirit, and continuously expanding your personal capacity in all areas of life. It means showing up and giving your absolute best effort, not just when you feel inspired or motivated, but every single day, consistently.
So it's not just about what you do, but the sheer volume, the intensity, and the unwavering consistency of how much you're willing to work, how much effort you're willing to put in day after day. And to make that kind of relentless work ethic even possible, to prevent any wasted moments in the day, he emphasizes meticulous planning and organization through techniques he calls scheduling time and compartmentalization. It sounds like an approach designed for maximum output, minimum waste.
Absolutely. And this approach, it leads us to consider a pretty fundamental question, I think. In a world that often seems to reward multitasking and constant connectivity, can true focus and peak performance actually only be achieved through rigid structure and intense self-imposed discipline? Goggins' method involves meticulously planning your daily activities, not just generally like work from 9 to 5, but specifically scheduling things into tight 15 to 30-minute blocks.
Every 15 minutes, wow.
Pretty much. to maximize efficiency and systematically eliminate any wasted time. And compartmentalization is the crucial operating principle that makes this work. It means focusing entirely and singularly on the task at hand during its allocated block. No multitasking, no succumbing to internal distractions like random thoughts or external interruptions like checking your phone constantly. Pure focus for that block.
That sounds incredibly difficult to maintain.
It is. And he proposes a concrete 3-week challenge for anyone who wants to try and adopt this level of structure. Week 1. You meticulously document every single activity you do all day long in full detail with precise timestamps. The goal isn't judgment, it's establishing an honest baseline, seeing where your time actually goes, exposing those hidden moments of procrastination or unproductive activity.
Okay, ruthless time tracking.
Week 2. Armed with that raw data, you then create your optimal schedule. This involves placing everything you need and want to do, from work tasks to personal development, exercise, meals, even rest into those precise 15 to 30-minute blocks, building your ideal, highly structured, super efficient day on paper.
Sounds like a puzzle.
Week 3. This is the final and obviously most challenging step. You rigorously execute this new schedule. It means living by the clock, trying your best to eliminate wasted time, and actively training your mind to stay fully engaged within each compartment on each task.
He actually lives like this.
He exemplifies it with his own extreme routine, or at least he did for long periods. Waking at 4 a.m. for a 6-10-mile run, showering, cycling to his 9-to-5 job, working out intensely during his lunch break, cycling home again, often totaling at least 50 miles of cycling daily, all while maintaining a demanding full-time job outside of his athletic pursuits. This isn't just about being efficient for efficiency's sake. It's about building an unshakable discipline that controls your attention and ensures every single minute serves a purpose aligned with your goals.
This truly sounds like a military-level operation applied directly to your personal calendar. There's absolutely no room for procrastination, no space for those quick fixes or the casual meandering through the day that most of us probably fall into. It's basically about living life like a 24-hour mission every single day. And that kind of intensity, that relentless drive, it naturally leads to his overarching philosophy of continuous pursuit of greatness with that powerful, almost daunting idea that there is no finish line.
Yes, the no finish line concept. And this idea, the continuous pursuit of greatness, it really forces us to deeply examine the nature of true accomplishment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It posits this profound paradox, a mindset of being, as some describe it, peaceful but never satisfied. A state that drives perpetual growth without succumbing to constant anxiety about the future or the illusion that you'll eventually reach some final destination where you could just stop.
So the work never ends.
In Goggins' philosophy, personal development and the pursuit of excellence are an endless pursuit, not a finite destination you arrive at. There is, quite literally, no finish line in life when it comes to self-improvement and pushing your potential. One must constantly strive for new goals, always pushing beyond what was just achieved, and crucially, never allowing complacency to set in. Complacency is the enemy. It means being willing mentally to start at zero each and every day, approaching every morning as a fresh opportunity to push further, regardless of yesterday's successes or failures.
Start at zero every day. That's a demanding mindset.
Extremely. He believes, quite simply, that life is too dynamic a game. We're either getting better or we're getting worse. There is no standing still. And while celebrating victories and acknowledging achievements is important, you need to recognize progress. He emphasizes quickly dialing it down after a success. Take a moment, acknowledge it, feel good about it, absolutely, but then immediately pivot. Start dreaming up new goals, establishing new routines, actively seeking out the next challenge, the next way to test yourself.
And his own life shows this, right? After the SEALs.
Vividly. After becoming a Navy SEAL, which for most people would be the absolute pinnacle of achievement, the ultimate goal reached, he immediately sought out new, grueling, ultra-running challenges, something completely different, arguably even harder in some ways. And even after achieving a top 5 finish in the notorious Badwater 135, an ultramarathon often considered one of the toughest foot races on Earth, he mentally declared to himself that he still hadn't achieved shit.
Wow. After Badwater.
After Badwater. Always striving for the next level, always pushing himself to find more within himself, to be more, to accomplish more. It's fundamentally about embracing the journey, the struggle, the constant effort, as the reward itself, not just the end result.
It's about a constant upward trajectory then, a refusal to ever truly rest on past laurels, because true growth in this sphere is an infinite game. You never win permanently. And in this relentless pursuit, failures aren't just tolerated, are they? They're actually seen as crucial, invaluable learning opportunities, which leads directly to his philosophy of learning from failure.
Indeed. In Goggins' philosophy, failures are emphatically not an endpoint. They're not a sign of weakness or something to be ashamed of and hidden. They're invaluable opportunities for profound growth and crucial improvement. Fuel, just like adversity. And he advocates for a rigorous, almost scientific process for extracting that fuel. Documenting failures through what he calls after-action reports, or AARs.
The AAR, like in the military.
Exactly. An AAR is a systematic review process, very common in military and business contexts, designed specifically to analyze an event's success or failure, purely to learn from it. And his process is quite rigorous. It involves writing down in detail everything that actually went well during the failed attempt, because usually something does. Exactly how the failure was handled in the moment. Did you panic, give up easily, fight through? And critically, a brutally honest assessment of your precise thought processes during both the preparation phase and the execution phase. What were you thinking? Where did your mindset falter?
So it's deep self-analysis of the failure.
Extremely deep. The absolute key here is the brutal honesty in identifying specific tangible areas for improvement. You're not just vaguely saying, I'll try harder next time. You're extracting concrete data from the failure. Based on these insights, you then create new, targeted goals designed to address those specific weaknesses you identified. And most importantly, you schedule immediate attempts to apply that new knowledge. You don't wait weeks or months to try again. You implement the lessons learned right away while they're fresh.
Get right back on the horse, but with a new plan.
Precisely. He firmly believes that failures are great because they contain the data you need to succeed. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process towards success. And his own experiences powerfully illustrate this unwavering commitment to learning from every single setback. He undertook multiple grueling attempts to break the world record for pull-ups in 24 hours.
Right, I remember reading about that.
He only succeeded on his third try. Why? Because after each failure, he meticulously analyzed what went wrong. Pacing, nutrition, hand care, mental fatigue points, refined his technique, strengthened his specific weak points based on that AAR data, and came back stronger. Similarly, his repeated failures during the incredibly difficult selection process for Delta Force, another elite military unit, did not deter him or define him as a failure. Instead, each setback provided crucial data for his ongoing journey of self-mastery. It informed his next steps. It further hardened his resolve. It taught him more about his own limits and how to push them. It's about being a perpetual student of your own performance, especially when you fall short.
Okay, so after deeply exploring this incredible, intense philosophy of mental toughness and relentless self-mastery, which really takes every aspect of your being and puts it through a crucible, I want you, listening right now, to truly consider this. What impossible goal have you dismissed in your own life? What dream have you shelved because your mind, that internal governor, told you you were only 40% capable, that it was just too hard, too far beyond your reach? And thinking about that goal, what small, maybe uncomfortable step, that little 5 to 10% push beyond your current limit could you take today, not tomorrow, today, to begin chipping away at that invisible limitation, to start callousing your mind just a little bit and maybe begin proving your own potential wrong?
And remember, as you reflect on that, true self-mastery in this framework isn't about somehow avoiding the battles, whether they're internal struggles or external challenges. It's about strategically choosing which wars to fight with yourself. And it's about learning how to harness every single piece of your history, the good and the bad, every perceived limitation and every moment of discomfort as potent fuel for your next seemingly impossible victory. It's about staying hungry, staying disciplined, and truly embracing the endless pursuit.
This was it on today's book, guys. Kindly subscribe to the channel for more such insights on various books, and also do not forget to join our social media community to stay in touch and get updated.